Sometimes God's delay is not rejection, it's protection in disguise. The phrase echoes in the mind like a whisper that few understand at first. Because waiting has never been easy, especially when the heart feels ready, but heaven has not yet responded. You pray, you prepare, you plan, and still nothing happens. The email doesn't arrive, the door won't open, time seems to stand still. But perhaps delay is not silence. Maybe it is strategy. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Everything that happens happens in the right way, if you let it." In other words, the universe does not fail in time. We fail in patience. And perhaps God uses time to cure us of haste. The anxious mind wants control. But control is the first idol that waiting destroys. Do you understand? Waiting is a test not of strength, but of trust. Not blind trust, but conscious calm, the one that says, if it hasn't happened yet, it's because something is still being shaped. The Bible says in Ecclesiastes 3:11, "He has made everything beautiful in its time, not in yours, in His." And this is the hardest lesson for those who love progress. Understand that not yet can be not yet safe. Think about it. How many times have you wanted something so badly, and today you are thankful that it didn't happen? Delay saved you from a path that seemed right, but it hid thorns that you couldn't yet see. Epictetus said, "Don't demand things happen as you wish, but wish that they happen as they do." It's not conformism, it is wisdom. Stoic acceptance is not giving up, it is discernment. It is the understanding that fighting against time is fighting against the very order of life. Maybe you're in that phase right now, between what you want and what hasn't come yet, between, "Lord, why are you delaying?" and "Maybe He is protecting me from something." And this is where silence turns into learning. Because delay forces us to look inside. It makes us realize that what we call waiting is actually a spiritual laboratory, where faith and reason learn to breathe together. The Stoic would call it discipline of the will. The Christian would call it trust in the invisible. But both point to the same truth. You don't control time, but you control the mind that inhabits it. What is being delayed may not be being denied. It may just be being prepared. And perhaps the greatest act of wisdom is not to run, but to stay. Because when the right time comes, and it always does, you will understand. The delay was not a punishment. It was care. If this resonates with you, know that many feel the same. The world moves on, but the soul matures slowly. And maybe right now God isn't saying no, He's just saying, wait. I'm protecting you from what you can't yet see. There is a phase in the journey that is harder than the pain of loss. It is the silence of waiting. When nothing happens, and the heart begins to question if time has stopped, or if God simply gave up. But He didn't give up. He is building in silence what noise would destroy. Stoicism teaches that a disordered mind creates unnecessary suffering. Epictetus said, "It's not what happens that disturbs you, but your judgment about it." And maybe the delay doesn't actually hurt because of the time, but because of story we tell about Him. If it didn't happen, it's because I failed. If God is silent, it is because He has forgotten me. But what if none of these statements are true? What if what you call delay is just a wiser form of time? Imagine a strained bow is not a sign of weakness, it is a sign of preparation before firing. The silence before the arrow is the moment when strength accumulates. This is how the soul is while waiting. When nothing seems to move, something inside you is aligning. You are being trained to bear the weight of the answer that is yet to come. And here comes the beauty of Stoic thought. It's not about suppressing emotions, but about directing them, to realize that even frustration can be a teacher. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Constantly observe that everything that happens is the result of change, and get used to the idea that nature loves what is useful." In other words, the delay is also natural. Nature does not rush the flower, and yet it blooms. The same goes for us. Impatience is the sign that we are still attached to control, and control is what distances us most from peace. The Bible echoes this wisdom in a whisper: rest in the Lord and wait patiently for him. Psalm 37:7. Resting is not giving up. It's trusting with your eyes open. It's walking even without seeing the destination, because faith does not require a map. It requires direction. And if you notice, every delay contains an invitation to self-control, clarity, and surrender. No to despair, but to maturity. The mind that accepts time becomes invincible, because nothing external can hasten what was destined to grow within. You don't need to understand everything now. Sometimes God's logic is greater than human logic, and the time he takes is the exact time to transform what you would be into who you need to be. The conflict ends when you understand. Waiting is not being passive. It is being prepared. It's not stagnation. It's polishing. And in that space between not yet and it's already coming, something is born that the modern world has forgotten: peace in motion. As the days went by, something began to change, not outside, but inside. The clock remained the same, but the heart was beating at a different pace. What was once impatience was now observation. What was once haste was now perception. And what before seemed like a delay now seemed like care. It was then that he realized time was not against him. The weather was be he. Nature is also in no hurry, and yet everything happens. The sun rises at the exact time, the waves come and go, the seasons alternate in silence, and none of them doubt the process. But the human being doubts. Want to see the result before the lesson, want to reap before sowing, want to understand before maturing. And that is precisely why time teaches, because he is the only master who does not rush. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "To accept calmly whatever happens is the mark of a great soul." Maybe this is what God, or life itself, expects of us: souls big enough to trust, even when they don't understand. Because waiting is not passivity, it is contained force. It's remaining whole, even when everything around you seems to stand still. Every person you admire has learned this art, to withstand the interval between planting and harvesting, the gap between dream and realization, the gap between promise and purpose. And perhaps that is the true miracle of waiting. Discover that you don't need to see to follow. You don't need to understand to continue. You don't need to control to trust. Stoicism calls this self-control. Faith calls trust. But deep down, it's the same phenomenon. The soul learning not to get lost in the midst of that which has not yet arrived. Think of all the things time has explained. The people who were, the plans that changed, the doors that closed, the paths that seemed right until they weren't anymore. Now, look back. How many of these pains turned into direction? How many breaks have protected you from falls you never imagined? The delay in the end was mercy and silence, discipline, because God is not concerned with giving you something quickly. He is concerned about giving you something that lasts. There is a moment when the waiting ends, but not because time has accelerated, and yes, because the heart slowed down. When this happens, something changes in the look. You no longer ask, "Why didn't you come?" You start saying, "Thank goodness you didn't come before." This is spiritual maturity. Stop demanding that life fit into your plans and begin to trust that your plans are falling into place in life. The Bible whispers, "The Lord will act for you. Only remain still." Exodus 14:14. This is the hardest and most beautiful as part of the journey, to be still when everything inside you wants to move. But the silence that was once torture now becomes a refuge. Time has taught you something no book could teach, the difference between giving up and resting. Giving up is letting go out of fear. To rest is to let go of trust. And that kind of confidence is what makes the soul blossom even in winter. 24-Age Challenge. Today, choose not to react in haste. Instead of looking for the next step, look at the now. Take a deep breath, look around and say to yourself, "This moment is not wasted. It's working on me." Then, write that sentence down where you can see it when you wake up. Repeat it until you believe it. And if you can, share just one word in the comments. What is time teaching you? Because when you write, you reinforce learning. And when you share, you remind others that no one waits alone. Invitation: if this video spoke to you, subscribe and walk with us. Here, every week, we transform wait in understanding, hurry on purpose, and silence in inner strength. Time is not your enemy. He is the most patient instrument of love, and when it all finally makes sense, you will look back and say, "God wasn't late. He was just waiting for me to be ready."